It's midnight here in Iceland, June 1st, and it's still bright outside. Great for photos, but terrible for sleep if you are not prepared. But that's just one of many things that people don't expect when visiting Iceland at this time of the year. In the next few minutes, I'll tell you what weather to expect, how to avoid crowds, which clothes to pack, and how to plan your trip so you spend more time exploring and less time in the car. Plus, I'll share a few tips that can mean the difference between a memorable adventure and a miserable experience, some of which is definitely not what you would expect, so let's dive in. June is a summer month, and that generally means temperatures around 12 degrees. But also, let me just be honest and tell you that the longer I live here, the more I learn that it can really be anything, and it is almost impossible to guess what weather to expect exactly. To give you an example, it actually snowed quite a lot at the beginning of June last year. And looking at the forecast now, it seems like we might get some snow showers again this year, at least up here in North Iceland and perhaps in the Highlands too. Alright, let me just quickly interrupt and say it is now second day of filming of this video. It is June 3rd, and as you can see, the forecast was actually right. It did snow, actually quite a lot, and even though I don't want you to think that you will necessarily get a snowstorm during your trip in June, it is still something that could happen, especially since this is the second year in a row that this happened, snowstorm at the beginning of June. And so I'm in the northern part of the country in Troll Peninsula. This is where we get the most of the snow most of the time, and there isn't really any snow in south coast of Iceland right now. And so it really depends where you are, but you know, you don't have a winter tires on your car anymore in June, and so always keep an eye on the forecast. This is definitely a possibility. And so yeah, with that, back to the video. Now let's move on to something that I touched on in the beginning, something that plays a huge role when traveling in Iceland, and that's daylight hours. Like I mentioned, we get 24-hour daylight at this time of year. More specifically, at the beginning of the month, sunrise is at 3:20 am and sunset at 11:30 pm. By the end of the month, sunrise is at 3 am and sunset is around midnight. And during those 3 hours between sunset and sunrise, the sky still remains completely bright because of how low the sun sits on the horizon at night. These long days have some huge advantages, but also some downsides, and so let's maybe talk about the good things first. The first is that long days give you a lot more flexibility. So if you overplan or underestimate how long things take, which by the way is one of the most common mistakes people make, you are not limited by darkness. Whether that means being able to visit more places in a single day or simply not having to worry about driving at night on unfamiliar roads, and so that definitely helps. The second advantage is that it's perfect for photography. Even though you can't see northern lights at this time of the year, when the weather is good, golden hour lasts much longer than what you are probably used to. And you can experience that perfect orange glow or soft light for most of the evening. A third benefit of those long days is that you can visit the most popular spots late at night or really early in the morning, which helps you avoid the crowds. And yes, it can already get pretty crowded here in June, but that's something I'll get to later in the video. Now we also need to talk about the downsides of those long days, and honestly something that many tourists here struggle with. Because of these bright nights, your body might get a little confused and you might find it harder to fall asleep. Luckily, there are ways to fight this and still sleep like a baby. The best option is having proper blackout curtains, although some rooms might still stay a bit bright. And because you probably won't be traveling with curtains to Iceland, then I guess that the best option here is to simply bring a sleep mask, which that alone can make a huge difference. If you forget one or you just don't have one, you know, having something like a headband over your eyes works too, and that's something that I personally do most of the time. Another item worth bringing, especially if you are a light sleeper like I am for example, is a pair of earplugs. And that's mainly because of all the birds, which can still be quite active even at night. Again, probably because of all that light outside. For example, at my place there is a little forest behind the cabin, and sometimes at night the birds decide to form a full-blown orchestra. And so that's one of the scenarios when the earplugs can really save your night. They'll also be a lifesaver if you are staying at a campsite. People often come and go at weird hours, and not everyone cares that others are trying to sleep. Another essential, a refillable water bottle. Iceland has some of the best tap water in the world, so there is no reason to buy a bottled water, and you can also safely refill it in small streams in nature. Alright, now let me show you something. These are millions of midges that swarmed Lake Mývatn at the end of May. This area is well known for them, and they usually start to appear in June. But warm weather in May moved everything ahead by 2 to 3 weeks. And even though these midges that you'll find here in Iceland, these don't bite, at least not in my experience, they always tend to swarm in the highest point, which in our case will be our head. They get into your eyes, ears, hair, and it's just impossible to relax or do anything without, constantly trying to chase them away. And that's why you will need to bring this, a mosquito net. And even if you end up not using it, it packs super small and costs almost nothing. And one tip that I'll give you is to wear it over your cap. That way the mesh stays away from your face, otherwise it can be quite annoying to wear. Now let's move on to clothes, because that's where so many people mess up. You may have heard that Iceland's weather is quite unpredictable, and I'm here to confirm it. You can have warm sunny weather with temperatures over 15 degrees, and an hour later it is pouring rain and the harsh wind makes it feels like it's freezing. That's why the key here is layers. If you're outdoorsy, then this won't really be new to you, but if you're more of a city person, then don't worry, I'll keep it super simple and I'll just explain what I wear. First layer, a merino wool t-shirt. It'll keep you warm, and if you sweat, you won't get cold the way you would in a cotton t-shirt. Plus you can wear it for days and it still won't sting. That said, it is also good to bring something like a regular short sleeve t-shirt for those warmer days. On top, a thin down jacket for insulation, and over that a waterproof windproof shell. For your legs, water resistant hiking pants, and on colder days, merino wool long johns underneath. Bringing a rain gear is also a great idea for heavy rain or for places with a lot of water spray. Then some kind of thin waterproof gloves, then something to protect your neck from wind and cold, like a simple buff, and then some warm woolen beanie might come handy as well. Then if you get cold easily and you want one more extra layer, or for situations like hotels and such, or if you also want some cool souvenir, then I also recommend maybe just buying something like this here, a traditional Icelandic woolen sweater. These are amazing, super warm, and I'm so happy with this, especially on the cold days. Also, a quick warning, many places you'll visit require a short hike. Sometimes the path is well maintained, but sometimes it's muddy or full of slippery rocks. That's why the last thing you want to be wearing here is city sneakers. And so just bring a pair of hiking shoes, or even like proper waterproof hiking boots. And there are still a few other items. And if you want, I have a full packing list inside my free 7-day planning email series, which you will find in the first link below. But before we move on to the next point, I just quickly want to mention, you bring and wear whatever you want. You want to have variety, go wild. But these are basically just clothes that, I've tested here in Iceland many times, and I know that these work here in these conditions. And so if you don't want to overpack and you only bring these, then I can almost guarantee you that you'll be good in whatever conditions and whatever weather Iceland throws at you. Now let's get into some travel tips, and that will be very useful whether you are still planning or about to set off. One of the most common mistakes that I see is people trying to cram too much into a single day. And I have seen itineraries that have like 40 locations in a single day, which once you get here, once you get to Iceland, you will realize that that makes no sense. It will just stress you out and you'll be constantly trying to keep up with the schedule, and so just don't do it. Instead, decide on a few key locations that you must see each day, and then mark a few would be nice to see spots along the way. And what people often don't realize is that there will also be tons of unplanned stops, because you'll constantly come across jaw-dropping views while driving. And I always tell people you won't be able to see everything, even in multiple trips, and so just don't feel FOMO if you skip some places. And to help you discover the best spots and make sure you don't miss anything, check out my Iceland map and planner. It has hundreds of handpicked locations, many of which you won't find online. All that with lifetime access and constant updates. Another big thing to consider is which region are you going to visit. And let me say this, if you have less than 7 days, you probably shouldn't drive around the entire ring road. Instead, focus on 1 or 2 regions. That way you will spend less time in the car and more time actually exploring. Plus you will avoid crowds and get to experience Iceland in much slower pace. But then if you have 7 to 10 days, you can drive around the entire island and still have enough time to see a lot at a reasonable pace. And if you have more than 10 days, definitely consider adding the Westfjords to your trip. Just keep in mind that you'll need at least 3 days to really explore them due to the driving distances. And what about the highlands? Well, they should 100% be on your list. The problem is that you never know when exactly the roads will open after the winter. And you'll need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get there. But more on that in a minute. Now, as I promised about the crowds, how bad is it? Well, June marks the start of the peak season and many popular spots, especially along the Golden Circle and South Coast, get quite packed. And especially when the tour buses arrive. And that's why, like I mentioned earlier, it is smart to visit them early in the morning or late at night. And here is one thing to consider, and that will probably only work if you are camping or if your schedule really allows it. And that is to completely flip your routine and travel at night and sleep during the day. It definitely isn't easy and it can really be inconvenient in many ways, but since the sun never sets, you can pull it off if you dare, which means that you will have most of the places, even the most popular ones, completely to yourself. It is something that I personally do during the summer and it is not easy, but in my opinion 100% worth it. Now, regarding lodging, I would personally only use 2 platforms, and one is booking.com and the second one Airbnb. And you can either book directly through them, or even better, use them as a search engines and then check if the place has its own website. And many times you'll even find better prices when booking directly. I actually run my own little Airbnb from June to September here in the mountains of the Troll Peninsula. So if you'd like to stay here, I'll leave a link below, or you can just send me an email. Just keep in mind that a lot of places, especially those in the south, get booked out well in advance, and so it is smart to reserve them at least 4 to 6 months ahead. Also, everything here is at least 20 to 30% more expensive during this time of the year, so that's definitely something to consider and keep in mind, when you are deciding when to visit. And the same goes for rental cars. They are more expensive and the cheaper options are always gone first. And so booking early is definitely smart. I actually have a discount code which you can use with one of the companies I partnered with. And you'll find that in the link below as well. And since we are on this topic, let's also talk about what kind of car to rent. Generally, if you are sticking to paved roads like 90% of time, a 2-wheel drive vehicle is totally fine. But if you know that your route includes a lot of gravel roads, or you just know that you will want to explore and take a lot of random detours, then renting a 4x4 is definitely worth it. It's not necessary that you always need to be in 4-wheel drive to drive on certain roads here, but those vehicles usually have better clearance and better tires, meaning less risk of damaging the car or getting a flat. Plus the drive will be just smoother and more comfortable. And to check what kind of roads are on your route, go to website road.is and switch to the pavement view in the top left corner. And then we have F-roads, Iceland's mountain roads, which we can mostly find in the highlands. Depending on how the winter was, they usually open sometimes between early and late June. And so keep that in mind if you are planning to visit places like Askja, Kertlingafjord or Landmannalaugar. And you can also see the latest road information on road.is. As for the activities that you can do in June, there is a lot. And so let's just start with the DIY tours, with the most popular being hiking. Most trails are pretty accessible this time of year, although there might still be snow at higher elevations or in the highlands. Another popular activity is puffing spotting. There are a few places around Iceland where you can do this on your own, and usually you can get very close to them. It is so easy to get great photos, even with your phone. Just be careful, they nest on sea cliffs and dig burrows underground, which means that if you get too close, you risk stepping through one, losing balance and falling off a cliff. And if your budget allows, also consider hiring a guide or joining a group tour. This opens up tons of other opportunities, from whale watching and horseback riding to glacier tours and mountain biking and much more. And here is a list of activities for some inspiration, so you can just take a screenshot of this. But yeah, June is an amazing month, one of the best months to visit Iceland, and I can already tell you that you can really look forward to your trip. It generally has a decent weather, it is easy to plan and travel, and there is so much to see and do. But also, if you want to make sure that you avoid some surprises during your trip, then make sure to check out this video next, and I hope to see you there.